Did you touch this envelope? 5 words. That's all it took to prove that the woman everyone overlooked was about to become the one person who could bring down an empire. Lily Parker stood frozen in the doorway 47 floors above a city that had never once looked up to notice her. She was 27, a night shift cleaner, a shy girl who'd perfected the dangerous art of being invisible. But tonight, invisibility was about to become her greatest weapon. 9:17 p.m. Rain hammering the windows of Crossapex Systems headquarters, the kind of building where power smells like leather and silence sounds like money. The intercom had crackled moments earlier. "Cleaner, come in." Now she faced Ethan Cross, the CEO, the man she'd watched from the shadows for 8 months, but had never dared to speak to. On the conference table between them sat a manila envelope, one word stamped across it in red: confidential. He turned from the window, his eyes sharp enough to cut. "Did you touch this?" Lily's hands twisted the cleaning rag she was holding, the same nervous gesture that had haunted her for 3 years. Ever since the day she stayed silent about something she'd seen. Ever since her brother's accident. Ever since she learned that some mistakes you carry forever. "No, sir." Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Then something made her add, "But I saw someone put it back, just now." She braced herself. For anger, for accusations, for the assumption that people like her, this shy girl in a gray uniform, were either incompetent or thieves. What she got instead was something far more dangerous. Ethan Cross studied her face like he was reading a book no one else could see. He pulled up security footage. The timestamp jumped, edited. Someone had cut the video. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Then he said 5 words that changed everything. "You just saved my life." Lily blinked. Not blamed, not dismissed. Believed. "What's your name?" "Lily Parker." "Lily." He said it like he was memorizing it. "I need you to tell me exactly what you saw. Every detail. Because someone just tried to destroy me and they made one critical mistake." He paused, and something in his expression sent ice down her spine. "They assumed you wouldn't matter." Outside, lightning split the sky. Inside, a shy girl who'd spent 3 years running from her past was about to walk straight into someone else's trap. What she didn't know yet was that the envelope wasn't the crime. It was the bait, and the real target. Well, some truths are too dangerous to reveal too soon, but by morning Lily would discover that telling the truth doesn't always protect you. Sometimes it marks you. The next morning arrived wrapped in corporate politeness that makes your skin crawl. Lily sat in a windowless HR conference room, her cleaning uniform replaced by the only dress she owned, navy blue, bought for her brother's funeral. Across from her sat Nina Hart, HR business partner, with kind eyes and a legal pad covered in careful notes. "Just walk me through what you saw, Lily." She described the envelope, the edited timestamp, the person she'd glimpsed, tall, purposeful, wearing an expensive suit. "Can you identify who it was?" Lily hesitated. "I only saw them from behind, but they wore a distinctive silver watch." Nina wrote something down, circled it twice. "This is being recorded as preliminary testimony. For your protection." Protection. The word landed hollow in Lily's chest. 2 floors up, Derek Vaughn addressed the executive board with practiced sincerity. "We need to remember these are human beings. Our frontline workers deserve dignity." He adjusted his cufflinks, silver glinting under the lights. "Which is why we must handle this matter with appropriate care." Ethan sat at the head of the table, watching Derek with careful stillness. "What exactly are you proposing, Derek?" "Simply that we need clarity on responsibility." Derek's smile was professional. Miss Parker has been here 8 months. Outsourced contract. No permanent connection to the company's reputation. The implication hung in the air. Ethan's jaw tightened. She told the truth. That's the only context that matters. Of course. Derek spread his hands. I'm simply thinking of what's best for CrossApex. And for your leadership, Ethan. It was a threat dressed as concern. Later that afternoon, Lily was cleaning the executive floor when footsteps stopped beside her. A porcelain cup appeared in her vision, steam rising from dark tea. She looked up. Ethan Cross stood there holding a second cup. Do you drink tea? Yes, thank you. She accepted it, startled. He sat beside her. Nina showed me your file. You studied industrial safety and process design. Lily's stomach dropped. That was a long time ago. 2 years isn't that long. You were 3 months from graduating top of your class. He sipped his tea. What happened? The question found every bruise she'd been nursing. I made a choice to stay silent when I should have spoken up. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. And someone I love got hurt because of it. She didn't say my brother. Didn't say he'll never walk without pain again. Didn't explain how she'd noticed a safety flaw at her internship, how she'd convinced herself it wasn't her place to question the engineers. And Daniel had fallen. 3 stories. Ethan was quiet. When he spoke, his voice carried unexpected weight. I lost someone once, my younger sister, because somebody chose silence over safety. He looked at her directly. So I understand why you're frightened, but your voice matters. Something shifted in Lily's chest. Not quite hope, but maybe the memory of what hope used to feel like. Ethan, what was in that envelope? His expression darkened. A falsified safety report for our Sterling plant. If I'd signed it, it would have authorized measures endangering 200 workers. He set down his cup. Someone wanted me to approve something dangerous and ensure I'd blame someone else when things went wrong. The pieces clicked together. This wasn't about a misplaced envelope. This was about creating a scapegoat, creating her. They're going to say I planted it there, aren't they? Ethan's silence was answer enough. That evening, Lily walked past the security desk, where Mrs. Marlene Shaw had worked for 32 years. The older woman looked up from her crossword puzzle. You're the girl from the 47th floor, aren't you? Lily nodded. Mrs. Marlene glanced around, then leaned forward. Honey, I've watched people come and go from this building since before you were born. The truth doesn't always protect you, but lies always find you eventually. She slid a business card across the desk with her personal cell number written on the back. If you need someone who remembers what happened on which night, you call me. These old eyes see everything. And sometimes the most powerful moments come from the people nobody's watching. What this quiet girl was about to discover was that the people who watch from the edges are often the ones who see the whole picture. And her quiet strength was about to become the thread that unraveled everything. The closed-door meeting happened on a Thursday morning that felt too bright for what was about to unfold. Lily sat at the end of a conference table designed for people far more important than her. Derek Vaughn stood at the front, presentation remote in hand. The board members, 6 faces carved from expensive educations and colder judgment, watched with detached interest. We've conducted a thorough review. Derek began, his voice smooth as aged whiskey. And while we appreciate Miss Parker's cooperation, certain troubling inconsistencies have emerged. He clicked the remote. An email appeared on the screen, her name in the sender field timestamp, showing 3 days before the envelope incident. Subject line, concerns about executive-level procedures. Lily's breath caught. I never sent that. Derek's expression was sympathetic in the way a predator might look sympathetic. I understand this must be stressful, but we have metadata routing logs. Another click. A screenshot of her employee login credentials, accessed at 11:42 p.m. Your own security badge shows you entering the executive floor outside your assigned schedule. I was called up early that night. The maintenance team requested, "We have no record of that request." Derek's voice remained gentle, perfectly reasonable, perfectly damning. What we do have is a concerning pattern. One of the board members waved his hand. We're looking for a quiet resolution here. No press coverage. No regulatory scrutiny. Miss Parker, we're prepared to offer you 6 months severance if you'll sign a mutual separation agreement with a confidentiality clause. 6 months' salary. Enough to keep her apartment while she searched for another job that would never ask why she'd left the last one. Ethan had been silent throughout, sitting with his hands folded, observing. Now he leaned forward. Show me the original video footage from that night. The unedited version. Derek hesitated for just a fraction of a second, but Lily saw it. As I explained earlier, the camera malfunction. You mentioned a malfunction. I'm asking to see what was actually recovered. The air in the room shifted. Derek's professional smile held, but something behind his eyes went sharp and calculating. Ethan, with respect, the board has already reviewed the available, then they can review it again, with me present. The silence that followed felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. And in that silence, Lily understood something that made her whole body go still. This meeting wasn't about discovering the truth. It was about creating a story everyone could live with. A story where she took the money, signed the papers, and disappeared back into the shadows. A story where powerful people never faced consequences. She thought of her brother Daniel, the way he'd looked at her from his hospital bed 3 years ago. It's not your fault, Lily. You couldn't have known. But she had known. She'd seen the flaw in the safety protocol. She'd convinced herself it wasn't her place to question it. And Daniel had paid the price with a shattered spine and a career that ended before it truly began. This shy girl who'd spent 3 years trying to become invisible was suddenly blazingly clear about one thing: she couldn't make that choice twice. Lily stood up, every head turned toward her. Her hands were shaking, but her voice came out clearer than she'd expected. I'm not asking to stay. I'm resigning. Effective immediately. Derek's expression flickered with surprise, then barely concealed satisfaction. But before I go, I need to say something. Lily looked around the table at faces that had already decided who she was, what she was worth. I know what you think of me. Night shift cleaner. No degree. Easily replaceable. But I also know what I saw, what I didn't do once before, and what that silence cost someone I loved. She pulled off her ID badge, set it on the polished wood with a small click that seemed to echo in the silence. If I stay here, I become silent again. I become someone who accepted the easy answer because speaking up was too hard, too risky. Her eyes found Ethan's. I can't do that twice. I won't. Miss Parker, let's not be hasty, Derek started. If truth only has value when I stay quiet about how it was found, then I don't belong here. She pushed her chair back with quiet finality. I don't want your severance. I don't want your confidentiality agreement. I just want to leave knowing I didn't choose comfort over what's right. She walked toward the door, her heart pounding so hard she could barely hear anything else. Lily, wait. Ethan's voice stopped her with her hand on the doorknob. He stood looking at Derek, then at the board. I want that original footage. I want the complete metadata audit on that email, and I want a full investigation into who had access to Miss Parker's credentials. His tone could have cut glass. Before we ask anyone to take responsibility, we're going to make absolutely certain we know what actually happened. Derek's polite mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something ugly underneath. Ethan, the board has clearly indicated their preference. The board hired me to run this company with integrity, so that's exactly what I'm doing. He remained standing. This meeting is adjourned. Lily slipped out into the hallway, her heart hammering her ID badge left behind like a shed skin. She'd just walked away from the only steady income she'd had in years, from health insurance, from the security she'd worked so hard to build. But for the first time since her brother's accident, she'd chosen truth over safety. And somehow, despite everything that felt like finally being able to breathe, Lily spent 3 days in her small apartment, watching rain streak the windows, and wondering if she'd just destroyed her future over a principle that nobody else valued. On the 4th day, her phone rang. Unknown number. Miss Parker, this is Marlene Shaw from security. I think we need to talk, but not over the phone. They met at a diner 6 blocks from Crossapec's headquarters, the kind of place where the coffee's terrible and nobody asks questions. Marlene slid into the booth across from Lily, carrying a purse that looked older than both of them combined. 32 years I've been at that building, she said, stirring sugar into her coffee. You know what nobody thinks about the security archives? All those cameras, all those access logs, backed up to a completely separate system that most folks don't even know exists. She pulled out a USB drive, set it on the table between them, like evidence at a trial. I was the system archivist before they moved me to the front desk. Still have my administrator access, and I've been doing some very interesting reading. Lily stared at the small device. What's on it? System logs from the night that envelope appeared. The main security feed can be edited, most people know that. But the environmental monitoring system, the one that tracks door access HVAC lighting, that runs on an entirely different network. Marlene leaned forward. And it shows something very revealing. She pulled out a printed spreadsheet, pointed to highlighted lines. At 9:04 p.m., the executive conference room door was accessed using COO-level clearance. Not you. At 9:06, the main cameras were tampered with a 2-minute window. At 9:13, that same COO clearance was used to exit. You didn't badge in until 9:17, 4 minutes after whoever did this had already left. Lily's pulse quickened. Derek Vaughn. The environmental logs don't lie, sweetheart. But here's what made me call you. That envelope you saw scapegoating, you was just damage control. The real objective was getting Mr. Cross to sign off on a falsified safety report for the Sterling plant. A report that would have shifted legal liability, cut critical corners, and saved the company about $4 million short-term. And cost lives long-term. Exactly. But Mr. Cross is too careful to sign something like that without thorough verification. So somebody needed to create chaos, make him doubt his own judgment. Marlene tapped the USB drive. And when that didn't work, they needed someone disposable to take the fall. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The forged emails, the stolen credentials, the manufactured evidence. None of it had been about Lily at all. She was just collateral damage in a corporate coup. Derek wants Ethan's position, Lily said slowly. If he could force Ethan to sign that report, then later prove it was falsified, Mr. Cross would be finished, forced to resign in disgrace. And guess who'd be perfectly positioned as next in line for CEO? Marlene's eyes were sharp behind her reading glasses. Derek Vaughn, the man who discovered the fraud and protected the company? Lily wrapped her hands around her cold coffee cup. I don't work there anymore. This isn't my responsibility. Marlene studied her with eyes that had witnessed decades of people making choices at crossroads. No, honey, you don't work there anymore, which means you don't owe them anything, but you owe yourself something. And you owe that brother of yours the truth this time. The mention of Daniel hit like a physical blow. I stayed silent once, Lily whispered, and someone I loved paid the price with years of pain. I swore I'd never do that again. Then don't. Marlene pushed the USB drive across the table. Some things aren't bound by employment contracts or severance agreements. Some things are just about being able to look yourself in the mirror every morning. That evening, Lily stood outside CrossApex headquarters as the sun set behind the glass tower. She had the USB drive in her pocket, evidence that could change everything, and absolutely no plan beyond one simple commitment: tell the truth. The security guard at the front desk looked at her with immediate skepticism. Ma'am, you need an employee badge to... I need to see Ethan Cross. Tell him Lily Parker has information about the Sterling plant safety report. Information he needs to see immediately. You can't just walk in here and demand... A familiar voice came from behind. Let her through. Lily turned. Nina Hart stood there, briefcase in hand, looking like she'd been working late. I'll escort her personally. In the elevator, Nina didn't ask questions. Just pressed the button for the executive floor and said quietly, I'm glad you came back. What you did in that meeting took real courage. I'm not back. I'm just finishing something I should have done a long time ago. Sometimes, Nina said with a small smile, that's exactly the same thing. The elevator doors opened to reveal barely controlled chaos. Raised voices echoed from the main conference room. Through the glass walls, Lily could see the board assembled an emergency meeting, judging by the tension in the air. Derek stood at the head of the table, gesturing emphatically, building his case, and Ethan leaning against the window with arms crossed, looking like a man who'd run completely out of patience. Nina knocked, once then pushed open the door without waiting for permission. Gentlemen, Miss Parker's here, and she has evidence you all need to see right now. The room went silent, Derek's face drained of all color. Ethan straightened his eyes, finding Lily's across the space. In that moment, she saw recognition, not surprise, but something deeper, like he'd been waiting for her. I don't work here anymore, Lily said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. But I'm here to tell the truth. Because some things matter more than job security or severance packages. She walked into the room, pulled out the USB drive, and set it on the table with quiet finality. Your COO has been systematically lying to you, and I have the proof. The IT specialist connected the USB drive and projected the environmental system logs onto the conference room screen, while Derek Vaughn's carefully constructed empire began to crumble in real time. 9:04 p.m. COO level clearance accesses executive conference room. 9:06 main security camera feed experiences technical interruption. 9:13 COO level clearance exits conference room. 9:17 Lily Parker's cleaning credentials register at the door 4 full minutes after Derek had already left. One of the board members leaned forward. This is from a completely separate system. The Environmental Management Network, the IT specialist confirmed. It requires administrator-level credentials to access and cannot be edited retroactively without leaving extensive forensic traces. There are no such traces. This data is authentic. Ethan turned to Derek with dangerous calm. What exactly were you planning to have me sign in that envelope? Derek's polished composure cracked. This is circumstantial. Access logs can be misinterpreted. Answer the question. The Sterling Plant Safety Report. Lily's voice cut through his deflection. She pulled out her phone, opened a photograph of the document. This version removes 3 mandatory inspection protocols and reduces the ventilation system budget by 60%. It would save money short term. It would also create conditions nearly identical to the factory incident in Millbrook, Pennsylvania. 2019. 4 workers died. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Ethan's face had gone absolutely still. How do you know about Millbrook? Because I studied industrial safety and process design. That case is taught in every program as a defining example of what happens when profit is prioritized over proper protocol. Lily met his eyes directly, and because my brother was severely injured in a similar incident, when someone made the exact same choice. Something shifted in Ethan's expression, recognition, and shared pain. Derek tried one final gambit. You're going to take the word of a disgruntled former employee with an obvious grudge over a COO who falsified evidence, forged emails, stole employee credentials, and attempted to manipulate me into authorizing conditions that could have resulted in multiple deaths. Ethan's voice could have cut through steel. Yes, Derek, I absolutely am. He turned to face the board. I want a comprehensive forensic audit of every document Derek has handled in the past 6 months. I want an independent investigation into the Sterling Plant safety recommendations. And I want Derek's immediate termination, effective right now. One board member cleared his throat. Ethan, perhaps we should discuss the optics of this in executive session. No. Ethan didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. I lost someone I loved in the Millbrook incident. My younger sister, Rachel, was a safety engineer at that plant. She questioned the modified protocols, was told not to make waves, and stayed silent because she feared losing her position. His hands remained steady on the table, but his eyes held an ocean of grief. 3 weeks later, she was dead. Because someone exactly like Derek prioritized a quarterly earnings report over human lives. The room was devastatingly silent. So no, we're not going to discuss this privately. We're not going to offer Derek a quiet resignation with a generous severance package. We're going to do what should have been done in Millbrook, what would have saved my sister and Lily's brother. His voice was firm, final. We're going to choose people over profit. And if the board cannot support that decision, then you can replace me as well. He looked directly at Lily. But I am finished watching good people get punished for telling the truth, while those who created the danger walk away clean. Derek stood, his face ashen. You're making a catastrophic mistake. No, Ethan said quietly. I'm correcting one that should never have been allowed to happen. Security escorted Derek from the building 20 minutes later. His access credentials were immediately revoked. His files were sealed for investigation. His meticulously constructed career collapsed like a house of cards because one invisible woman had refused to stay silent. Lily walked out of that conference room with nothing tangible, no job, no badge, no promises. But she carried something infinitely more valuable. The weight of 3 years of guilt finally beginning to lift from her shoulders. She had spoken up. She had told the truth. And this time someone had listened. Saturday evening arrived soft and golden, the kind of light that makes everything feel like a second chance. Lily was folding laundry in her apartment, trying not to think about job applications or dwindling savings when the knock came gentle, almost hesitant. She opened the door to find Ethan Cross standing in her hallway, wearing jeans and a simple sweater, instead of his usual executive armor, looking strangely uncertain for a man who commanded boardrooms. Hi, he said simply. Hi. They stood there for a moment in that awkward space between professional and personal, and Lily was suddenly acutely aware of her faded t-shirt and the fact that her hair was held up with a pencil. I came to tell you something. Ethan took a breath. I accept your resignation. Lily's stomach dropped like a stone. But I don't accept this company losing you. He held out a folder, not an employment contract, not a legal document, just a simple portfolio with a navy blue cover. 3 months ago, after what happened, I started an initiative. It's called No Silence in Safety. His voice was steady, sincere. Anonymous reporting channels, independent safety audits, real enforceable protections for anyone who speaks up about dangerous conditions. I need someone to run it. Someone who understands what silence actually costs. Someone the workers will trust because she stood exactly where they stand. Lily stared at the folder, her hands trembling slightly as she took it. I'm not asking you to come back as a cleaner. I'm asking you to help me build something better, something that would have saved your brother and my sister. His voice softened with genuine emotion. If you want it. No pressure, no obligation. Just an offer from someone who thinks you're one of the most courageous people I've ever met. She opened the folder with careful hands. The salary listed there was more than she'd made in 3 years of night shifts, but that wasn't what made her breath catch in her throat. It was the title printed at the top, Director of Worker Safety and Ethics. I don't have a degree, she whispered, old insecurities rising. I never finished. You have something far more valuable than a degree, Lily. You have integrity that can't be taught, and you have lived experience that no classroom could ever provide. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. Besides, we offer full tuition reimbursement. You could finish your studies if you wanted, on company time with full support. Lily looked up at this man who'd lost a sister to the same kind of institutional silence that had injured her brother, who'd risked his own position to choose truth over convenience, who was standing in her modest apartment hallway offering her not charity or pity, but a genuine chance to transform her deepest pain into meaningful purpose. It was the kind of heartwarming moment she'd thought only existed in stories. I'm still going to push back when I think you're wrong, she said, a small smile tugging at her lips. I'm counting on it. And I'm going to make some of your executives extremely uncomfortable. Good. They should be. She held out her hand. Then I accept Mr. Cross. He took her hand, his grip warm and steady and somehow right. Welcome to Cross Apex, Director Parker. And please call me Ethan. I have a feeling you're going to change everything about how this company operates. As they shook hands in her doorway, Lily felt something shift deep in her chest. Not just hope, but the solid certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be. The shy girl who'd spent years being invisible was about to step fully into the light. 3 months later, Lily stood in front of 200 workers at the Sterling plant, introducing the new safety protocols that would become standard across every Cross Apex facility. She was no longer the shy girl cleaning hallways in silence. She was Director Parker, changing lives with every policy she implemented. In the back of the room, Ethan watched with unmistakable pride and perhaps something deeper. After the presentation, they walked together to a charity exhibition supporting families affected by workplace incidents, Rachel's favorite cause and one that now honored Daniel's story too. Not CEO and director, not boss and employee, just Ethan, just Lily. They stood by the gallery's floor-to-ceiling windows, 47 floors above the city, where she'd once felt invisible, watching the lights bloom across the skyline like promises. Thank you, she said softly, for seeing me when I felt like I didn't matter. He turned to her, his expression tender in the amber light. Thank you for refusing to stay silent. You didn't just save my company. You reminded me why I built it in the first place. And there, in that heartwarming moment suspended between past pain and future possibility, Lily Parker finally understood a truth that had taken years to find her voice, had always mattered. She just needed to believe it herself.